So we're on Sadi Zayin at base. I'm towards the bottom. Let's get up. I'm sorry about that. So the subject we started the sugya yesterday, and that was about Gerim. If they were allowed to marry sister-in-law, means two brothers that were Magayar, and one had a wife, and is the other brother allowed to marry her? Means if he would divorce her or he died, would the other brother allowed to marry? The halacha that is also to marry brother's wife maybe it doesn't apply to Gerim because they're not considered related. So yesterday we pointed out the main players, the main mandamim here is Rav Yaakov and Rav Sheshes. Rav Yaakov is the one who says that it's mutter. Rav Sheshes is the one who says that it's asur. The Gemara first discussed that maybe Rav Yaakov is not permitting in all times, maybe only when there's something related to the father. It means the Gemara starts off that the relationship between the father is a weak relationship. The relationship from the mother, the common mother, is a strong relationship, and that would be the question. If it would be only from the father, everybody would hold that as mutter. They're not considered related. If they're related only from the mother, then they would be considered related. Then the focus would be if they're both, that the people look at the father, the people look at the mother. That's how the Gemara first presented the machlokes, and then it's Sadiq the Amri that Rav Yaakov is extremely mekel. Means that even if it would be only from the mother, also we're talking about two brothers that were Magayar. How were they related? How were they common? They were brothers from the common mother or the common father. And the Gemara comes out, let's take the extreme case. Rav Yaakov says that even the case where they're only related through the mother, which is the most reason to be usher, he says even that's also mutter because Gershon is guy katan shenola dami. And just a little bit more insight that I got today than yesterday is that everybody seems to, with Rishonim over here, that everybody seems to say that midaraisa, we do say shenola, shen is guy katan shenola dami. That midaraisa they're not considered related because it is svara and they're newly born and they're not related. But the whole question is here on a Drabbana. How people look at it, is there any chash that it's going to come to make a mistake and think that Jews also would be mutter in such a case? And if Rav Yaakov is saying we don't make any Drabbanans, that Gershon is guy Kaddish and all of them, he'd be allowed to marry his brother's wife. And Sheshes holds that it's asur because they might come to make a mistake and do so also by Jews. So we made this takana that he should not marry his brother's wife. Yesterday the Gemara went through the discussion of our Mishnah. Could you bring a wife from our Mishnah or not? Just in short, without going through the details, the Mishnah says that in this case, two brothers that were Magayar, they don't have Chalitza or Yibum. Means if one of them died without children, so the other brother doesn't do Chalitza and Yibum. And that's really Pashut because Chalitza and Yibum only has to do with the father, the relationship of the father. And here they're now considered related to the father. So there's no mitzvah of Yibum. But the Gemara talks about if you could be medayik from the Mishnah, what would be the din about would it be mutter to be miyab? It means they don't have to do Yibum because they're not related from the father. The mitzvah of Yibum is only from a common father. But the halacha that you're not allowed to marry a brother's wife is even if they're only brothers through the mother. Again, the mitzvah to do Yibum is only common brothers from the same father. And here they're not considered from the same father, so then there's no mitzvah of Yibum. But the question is when the Mishnah says that there's no chalitza or Yibum, does it also include that they're not allowed to do Yibum? Means usually we say by regular Jews, we say that if there's no mitzvah of Yibum, say you're not allowed to do Yibum, because if it's not a mitzvah, so you're marrying a brother's wife without a mitzvah. So that's a chiv kares. But here, when the Mishnah says there's no chalitza and no Yibum, does it include that they're not allowed to because they're considered related? That would be more leaning towards Rav Sheshes. Or it doesn't say that. It just says that there's no mitzvah of Yibum, but maybe they are allowed to marry if they want to. He wants to marry his brother's sister. He may. That's good. What's that? More. That's good. So that was more or less the raya from the Mishnah. The Gemara said you can't bring a raya either way, and we're going further to find proofs. The rest of the daf today, the whole daf today is going to be revolving around this subject. Do we say like Rav Yaakov that brothers that are Magayar, there's no relationship at all, and they'd be allowed to marry the sister-in-law, or no, that they did make it Isser Rabbanan. So that's what the Sugi is going to talk about. We're going to have other information coming around about Gerim and the marriages of Gerim, but that's the main subject we're looking for, and everything is revolving around that subject.
The brother died. The other brother died, and now he's marrying
Either he died or he divorced his wife, and now, yeah, no difference. There's no difference as far as a brother marrying. You're not allowed to marry brother's wife, even no difference. If they're allowed to, then you're allowed to. If they get not considered brothers, then be allowed to. So that's the question: is usher for a ger to marry his brother? I mean, two gerim, two brothers from a gayer. Is he allowed to marry his brother's wife? After them a guy, right? No, maybe that's one thing. The Gemara is going to come. It's going to be posture that he had a wife when he was a guy. That's surely nothing. That's not even a question. He's surely allowed to marry his brother's wife who had a wife when he was a guy. And then they were a guy. He's surely allowed to take because the wife he had when he was a guy, that's nothing. And that the Gemara is going to come out each time the Gemara is trying to bring a proof. The Gemara is going to say that is that case. In that case where he takes the wife that the brother had when he was a guy, when the marriage that they had when they were a guy, that's not considered anything. And therefore surely the brother's allowed to marry his brother's wife who was a wife when he was a guy. Surely.
Wait a second. So the story is, if I'm getting correct, is that the brother and his wife were Magaya first, and then he's still a guy, and then
No, two brothers were Magaya
at the same time.
But whatever, that doesn't make a difference. Two brothers were Magaya, one of them married,
Right.
and then he died or divorced, and could the other brother marry that sister-in-law?
Why should it be okay? He's a Jew now. The Jew can't marry his sister.
But they're not brothers. Because the game, if you say Kaddish and Ola dummy, so they're newborn. They're newborn. That's what the sugya is hanging on. Do you say that this svara of Ger Shanol, and everyone knows what the rice is, but the rice is a lot of married. The only question is on Rabbanan. Did Rabbanan ask her to marry your brother's wife because Jews shouldn't get mixed up and think that you're allowed to do such a thing? Tashma. So on the bottom of the page, Sali Zainam with base 3, 5 lines to the bottom. Tashma. Shnei Achim Ta'omim. Gerim. Two twin brothers that were Magaya. Twin brothers. What's the twin brothers make a difference? So the Gemara is going to point out that by non-twins, we're not so. It's even less possibility that less definite that they're even fit biological brothers because maybe the two different fathers. Means we don't know if the mother was Mazana. If you have two brothers that were Magaya, we know it's the same mother, but we don't know it's the same father because even though she only had one husband, that doesn't mean anything. It could be that she had relations with other men, and therefore that's not so sure that they even have a biological common father. But when they're twins, then there is the same biological father. So that's why we're talking about two twins. So they definitely have the same father and the same mother. No difference if they're Gerim or they were Avadim that became free. They also have the same din of Gerim. And there's no din of Chalitza or Yibum because they're not considered brothers, even though they have a common biological father. The fatherhood is not enough to be considered fatherhood as Jews, and therefore there's no din of Chalitza. If one of them will die without children, there's no din that the other brother should take his wife. And there's no liability for marrying the brother's wife. These are the words we're going to focus on. We'll finish the brayso, but these are the words that the Gemara is going to emphasize to bring a proof about our subject. Is it worth it to marry a brother's wife? Here it says there's no liability. Usually there's a liability to marry a brother's wife. The Chiv Koris here is not Chiv Koris if you take the brother's wife. It continues. The brayso continues. We'll get to the right at the end of the page, but the brayso continues. But if this woman, when she was pregnant with twins, she was Magai when she was pregnant. That's the case of her conception was when she was still not Jewish, and when they were born, she was already Jewish. Also, there's no din even because it doesn't make a difference. The father is not doesn't make. They don't have a common father, even though biologically it's the same father. But once they're Magai, so there's no difference. This case, there would be a liability of brotherhood. This is very interesting. Just to talk about the subject, when a pregnant woman converts, and then she gives birth when she's already Jewish. Is the child Jewish? So we said that even though one might have thought, I always thought that also, one might have thought that a Jewish woman gave birth, the kid's Jewish. Not so. That has to do with the conception, and if when she conceived she was not Jewish, so the child is not necessarily Jewish. The only reason why he's Jewish is because when she was Magai, when she did a conversion, the child did it together with her. The child was inside of her, and the Gemara talks about why it's not considered a chatzitza. When she goes to the mikveh, why it's not considered a chatzitza. And the same way the Gemara talks about over yerachimo, or that derech kedei lasa revisei, that is normal. So both of them converted. So the reason why the pregnant woman who converted, the reason why the child is Jewish is not because he has a Jewish mother, because he converted the same way his mother converted. He converted. Good.
And that's the halacha?
Yes,
So once he's born, the mother converted.
when she was pregnant,
That he doesn't need to be.
right, because he was Megayer already, not because he has a Jewish mother, because he was Megayer together with the mother. But here, now comes, that was ready, we had it yesterday, we had a couple of times. And now the extra chiddush that the Gemara is going to talk about now is that the relationships that he has is decided by the time of birth. So he had this woman, she had two ubrim, she had twins. A pregnant woman with twins converted. So who converted? Three people, the mother and the two ubrim, the two fetuses. And now are they considered brothers? Are they brothers?
Because they converted.
They converted in the womb. But when they were born, they were already converted. So here's an interesting case. Even though you say Katan Ger Shenazgai Katan Shenoladami, that the conversion makes him newborn. Okay, so he was newborn in the womb, but then they were really born. Then they were physically born. So they're brothers because they were born from the same womb. They have the common mother, even though they were all Megaya. Usually when we say when the conversion deletes everything before, start a new life. But here they did this deletion in the womb. When they were born, that was after the Giyur. So therefore they are brothers.
Rabbi, you said it's all about at the inception she's Jewish. Well, she at the inception she was a Goya and they were born.
Yeah, and they converted. She converted when she was pregnant, and the kids converted together with her in the
We're
womb.
saying that from the time of conception to the time of birth, anything that's in her stomach is converting with her.
Yes,
You know.
we talk about it because we talk about by the mikveh. When she goes to the mikveh, the Gemara says it is a chatzitza. Is she considered a separation when the kids? But it's not a chatzitza. The kids converted. But the chiddush Al Gemara is adding on to that is that when they're born, they have twins that are born after she's Jewish, so they have a common mother. Even though she's the mother, and even though you can have a case of two brothers that are Megayir, and they, even though they're physically born from the same mother, but they're not considered related to the Raisa because when they converted, you delete everything before. But here, the deletion happened when they were in the womb, but they were born after that. The conversion happened in the womb, and you have here two Gerim in the womb of the mother. She's also
Jews, and they come married the brother.
Not because they're full-fledged Jews, because they're full-fledged brothers. We talk about the brotherhood. That's the point. That's the chiddush over here. That the Jews, they're converted. But here the point is that they're brothers, and that's why it says in this case they are going to be chayiv if they take the brother's wife because they're considered brothers. The case before said in chayiv mishum because they were megayir after they were born. But if they were megayir in the mother's womb, so then they are brothers, and therefore they would not be allowed to take their brother's wife.
Excuse me. What happens with the idea that we go after the father, not after the mother? We go after is the father.
If we could hold off, I appreciate it. It has to keep on to the just to keep on to the words.
Mother, she's the one who's now the one that's the fact.
She converted, and they converted together in her womb, and they're brothers because they have a common mother.
Right.
The father was saying is not in the picture. The father is not. The father is not the.
What's going on?
If they even were conceived when she was already Jewish after the conversion, that's not a question. They're mama's Jews. That's mama's Jews. A woman who converted and then she conceived, so she's a Jewish woman. Push it. Yes. In any case, we learned, and now we're going back to the highlighted words that I said before. That two brothers that converted, they're not liable for taking a brother's wife. That's what it said. We learned in any case. Katani means we learned in the Mishnah, Mihas al kol panim. In any case, that there's no liability for taking the brother's wife. So those words just say they're not liable. Not liable is not the way to say that it's permitted. If it would have been permitted, they would have said it's permitted to take a brother's wife, and that's what we're talking about. The machlokes we had before, Rabbi Yaakov says that you're allowed to take a brother's wife. That it's even permitted. So it doesn't say, it's not right to say that there's no liability. That's not the way you say it. You would say that it's permissible. The fact that it says they're not liable sounds like it's usher. It's prohibited, just as not liable. Like it's asur rabbanan. That's the whole question. The question is it asur rabbanan or not? Everyone knows that it's not asur midiraisa. It's not chayv midiraisa. Midiraisa, the gerim, they're not considered related. But midrabanan, do we say that it's asur? And here it says they're not liable. Katani miyas, ein chav b'shem meishasach. Chiyuva like a next page, Yisura Ika does sound like it is Asr. That's the kasha on Rav Yaakov. Rav Yaakov says that it's mutter. Here it sounds like it's Asr. that you're not allowed to marry the brother's wife. That's good, everybody? There's no liability. But it is prohibited. The Gemara answers, who are them that feel we sue and look, really, you could say that really it's even permitted. So why doesn't it say permitted? Why does it just say there's no liability? Because in the Sefer, it's going to, that brings us symmetrical. Later on, the Bryce is going to say in the case where they were born, they were twins that were born to the mother after she was Megaya, so they are considered brothers, and it's even Chayavin. This line over here, Chayavin Misham Eshasah, that's why the Rachel says Ein Chayavin. Really, it could have said it's even permissible, but it wanted to be symmetrical, so it kept to the subject, is it liable or not? But really, Rav Yaakov says not only is it not liable, it even will be permitted, it's not even Asher Rabbanan. The Gemara continues the side point, Amar Rava, third line. And now we're going to say that the din that they're not considered related to the father is not, I'll just say after the Gemara says it's about 10 lines that's in parentheses over here. It's not such a parentheses, it's pretty much a subject, but it's not the actual subject we're talking about. We said that the father relationship is not considered a father. The father doesn't make them related. The only issue is the mother, not the father. So you might have thought the reason is because we don't know who the father is, even though these two brothers think they have the same father. Maybe not. Maybe the mother was Mizana, and it's very possible that the mother was Mizana. It's not the same father. So Rav is going to say, you see in this brisa, that's not the point. The same way, the fact that I said that they are twins, the twins means that for sure it's the same father, and still they're not considered related to the father. That's what Rav says. Amar Rava, Hadam Rabbanan, Ein Avla Mitzri. Ein Avla Mitzri is a censorship. It should have said Ein Avla Goy. They put in Mitzri because they didn't want to get involved with the Goyim that they printed the Gemara in Europe under the Christianity. So they used to put in always Mitzri, Kanani, Domi, whatever you wanted. But really means Ein Avla Goy. That the Chachamim said that the Goy is not considered, his father is not considered his father. That's why I said in the Mishnah, there's no Yibum. There's no Yibum by brothers from the same father because the father is not considered the father. So that which Chachamim say, that the Goy doesn't have a father, don't think the reason is because since the woman Amazana, so it could be we don't know who the father is. That maybe they have two different fathers. You think they're brothers, they're not really the same father. That's not the reason. You might think that if we know for sure that it's the same father, then there is a relationship of fatherhood, and let's say there would be Yibum. That's not the reason. Even if you know for sure it's the same father, still we don't consider the fatherhood anything. If it's twin brothers, it means that the same semen of the same father and it's divided into two. That's how you got the twins. And or even if it's two different drops of semen, but it still means that the same father. And V'katani Sefer Lo Chosev Lo B'Yavan, and still it says that there's no Yibum, even if and Lo Chalitza, even not even with Rabbanan, you don't consider them that they're brothers at all. So you see, that's not because we don't know who the father is. Even if you know who the father is, halachically they're not considered related to the father. Shram enough. So you see that the Rabbanan or the Torah disowned his seed. That means that he's not considered the father of these children, as it says, and the Bible is a pasuk about Mitzrayim over there. It does talks about that their flesh means their organ is like that of a donkey, and their flow, the flow of semen, is like that of a horse. And the pasuk over there is talking about Mitzrayim, I think, but the point is not after Mitzrayim. The point is to say that the Torah, the Rabbana, the Torah that looks at their fatherhood, disowned. We look at it as if it would have been an animal that you don't look at the brotherhood of the two animals that have a common father. Really, the Gemara doesn't have anything to do with this pasuk. It just means to say on a Rabbanan. But the Raisa, Gersh and this guy, and they're not related. The question is on Rabbanan level, do they make them somewhat related because it looks like they're related? And the Gemara says before that the mother yes and the father not. And he was saying that the father not, even if it's definitely the same father, also we don't look at the seed as if it's his seed, and therefore the two brothers are not related. Back onto the subject, back onto the
why don't we look at this as its own seed? Because the children were Megaya, the mother.
well, everything's talking about Giyur. The fact that children are Megaya, so that makes them newly born. But the question is, but Rabbanan, do we say that they look like they're related because biologically they're related? So we say that as the father's biological relationship is ignored, and the mother maybe is yes noticed. That's machlokes that Rav Yaakov says that even from the mother also they're allowed to marry their brother's sister, the brother's wife, because we ignore the mother's motherhood also. But that's the machlokes. But here it says as far as the father surely is not considered the relating factor.
He's a good.
What's the difference? He's a biological father. So you might think that that's enough to make a drabanan to consider the brothers brothers, and there should be at least chalitza because it looks like they're brothers. Again, I'll start again. With the Raisa, the sugya doesn't start. With the Raisa, Geresh and his guy, Dummy, and they're newborn. That's good. So that's Hakdama to the whole sugya. With the Raisa, they're not related. We're talking about Rabbanan. Everything's talking about Rabbanan. That's good.
Yeah.
So we're not going to say again and again that with the Raisa, they're not related. We know with the Raisa, they're not related. The question is, with Rabbanan, are they related? So far, the Gemara said as far as the father, they're not related. And even Chalitza, you don't have to do Chalitza even with Rabbanan, even though they have a common father. And one of them died without and with Rabbanan would at least say that Jews shouldn't think that in such a scenario they don't have to do Yibum. You don't make by father, the fatherhood is ignored. The question is the motherhood. Are you going to say that the fact that by even the relations, there's no Yibum by brothers from a mother, but there is a Isser to marry your brother's wife if they're two brothers from a common mother?
So that's the difference. There's a din by Yibum and a din by marrying your brother's wife.
Yes, and we're talking about that the din that it's us to marry your brother's wife, even if you have a common mother, does that apply to Gerim? That's the machlokas of Sheshes of Racha by Yaakov, and we're on the search for a proof. So we didn't find one yet. Here it's almost said that it's not Chai, it sounds like it's us. So the Gemara said it could be that it's Mutter also. Tashma, Dama Rabbi Yossi, reverse said a story. Ma'aseh ben Niftaim Hager. Sounds like a Goyish name, I don't know what it is. Niftaim. Okay, I don't know which culture it came from. Ethnic group, I don't know. Okay. Niftaim Hager. Maybe this was his Goyish name, I don't know. He married his brother's wife. His brother's wife from a common mother. They had a brother from a common mother, and he married his brother's wife. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about this case. Is a mutter for a ger to marry a brother's wife, a brother from the common mother, right? That's the subject. And here Bryce says
After he Megayed.
after he was Megayah, right? And here is the story that he did it. The story came to the Chachamim. Chacham said at Tanoim, "V'amu ein ishos leger." For so far, the Bryce seems to say, "Ein ishos leger" means there's no marriage for a ger. Those words don't make sense. Of course, a ger could get married.
Right, so it means that it's okay.
It's okay what he did, but the words don't make sense yet. The words say there's no ishus for a ger. If a ger marries somebody, it's not a marriage. Of course, a ger could marry. The words must have meant that there's no issur for this ger to marry his brother's wife. So it says openly, is the right of Racha Yaakov. My love, that's the end of the brisa with the explanation. My love, the nasba ach kishu ger isn't the case that the brother married him. The first brother had married her after he was Megayah, and now the second brother is allowed to take her. So that's the case we're talking about. That you see, there's no issur for a ger to take his brother's wife. So it's the right of Racha Yaakov. The Gemara throws it off. But the Moshe said in the beginning, no, that's not the case. The nasba kishu goy. The Gemara says it could be the case was that he only was the brother's wife when he was a goy. The brother, when he was a goy, had a wife, and then he was Megayah, and the brother was Megayah. Now he could take, and the woman was Megayah, everyone was Megayah. The two brothers and the wife of one of them. So now the other brother could take her because there was no marriage before. That wasn't a marriage. But the fact that when she was a goy, they were married. That's nothing. So surely that's not even a question. No one's going to answer that. The only question we have is if he had a wife after he became a ger. That's where the subject starts. But if she was a wife when he was a goy, then surely after the Megayah, the brother could take her. So it's not a raya against Rav Sheshes. But the Gemara says that goes without saying. Kishu goy. What's a chiddush? That wouldn't be a chiddush that he's allowed to marry his brother's wife that he had when he was a goy. You might think that if we're going to allow somebody to take his brother's wife, who was a wife when he was a goy, we should say that's also what's it, because if that's going to be mutter, he might take also his brother's wife, who was a wife after he was a ger, and that Shesha says you're not allowed to do. So much they weren't machmir. So the Gemara still didn't find the raya. We've got a little bit more information. Everybody holds for sure it's mutter. If it was only a wife that the brother had when he was a goy, then surely after the giur, the other brother's allowed to take her. That's not a question. But the machlokes still remains if they were married after they were Megayah, and now he divorced his wife or he died, could the other brother take the sister-in-law? That's still the machlokes. We have no raya yet. The Gemara continues. Tashma, another story.
That they're full-fledged Jew.
A ger is a full-fledged Jew. That's not a question.
Are they still considered biological?
Are they relatives? Tashma, Dama ben Yasain, another name, I don't know what that is. Ben Yasain, I don't know. He said, Kishalachti Lakarcha, when I went to the islands. Where are islands? I went to the islands. Greece, okay. I found a ger that married his sister-in-law. He married his brother's wife from a common mother. So that's why I'm the case again. Here we are. Another Bryce talks about the case like as a ger allowed to marry his brother's wife. Amati lo b'ni mi yeheshach. I said, my son, who permitted you that? Amali ha'reisha v'shiva bana. There was a story with a woman and 7 sons that they were Megaya, and they married each other's. They got permission to marry their brothers' wives. They were brothers from the common mother, and they married each other's wives. Al Sapsel Zeh Yoshev Rabbi Akiva. This is part of the Brisa still on this bench. He still had the chair of Rabbi Akiva. He said Rabbi Akiva was on this bench, and he permitted to marry a ger could marry a brother's wife. The Yoshev Rabbi Akiva B'Amar Shnei Dvarim. He said 2 things. One is this halacha.
I mean, the problem would be
A drabanan. Yeah, you're not allowed to marry a brother's wife. The question is, do they make this issur also on a ger, even though they're not related? Because after the giur, they're not related with the raisa. Did they make a drabanan that it looks like a brother's wife? So Rabbi Akiva said, ger knows say that a ger is allowed to marry his brother's wife, even though they're brothers from the common mother. Still, you're allowed to marry the wife. So he has a brisa that says that it's mutter. The brisa goes on a little bit more. We're going to get to this is the right we want. These words. Ger and Rabbi Akiva said, ger knows like Acha Bar Yaakov, that it's mutter to marry your brother's wife. Agab, Rabbi Akiva said another thing from that bench. This is the pasuk in Yonah, and it says that Hashem spoke to Yonah, and it says the second time Hashem spoke to Yonah. And then it says Shenis, says the word Shenis. He spoke to him a second time. The pasuk emphasizes that it's the second time Hashem spoke to him. Why does it say the word Shenis? Shenis dibri imo shchina, shlishis lo dibri imo shchina. That was the only time. Second time, no more. After that, Hashem didn't speak to him anymore. That was what Rabbi Akiva said. That's not a ger to us right now. We just want the first one, that ger knows that a ger is allowed to marry his brother's wife. So it's a raya to a Bacha B'Yakov. Isn't that what we're talking about? My love, the Nasba Achiv Kishu Ger, isn't the case that the brother had married her when he was already a ger, and that's our subject now, that the other brother's allowed to take her. That's a mamash question we're talking about. So once again, every time the Gemara brings a raya, the Gemara is going to knock it down with the same thing. If it doesn't say beferish, we can say it's talking about that it was a wife that he had while he was a goy. Lo, not necessarily. The Nasba Kishu Goy. Rav Sheshes will say the case that it's mutter is only if the goy had taken her as a goy, he took his wife, and then when he was Megayah and the woman was Megayah and his brother was Megayah, so then the brother's allowed to take, because that wasn't a marriage at all. But if it would have been a wife that he had after his Megayah, then Rav Sheshes says cannot. But then the Gemara says that same kasha over again. What's the chiddush? Of course it's mutter. You might think they make a gzeira at least. That you might think that if you're going to permit this, the goyish wife, the wife of the goy, you might think it's going to be mutter. It's also because then you might take the wife of that he had after he's a ger. Kamashma, you don't make a gzeira, but still we didn't find the proof yet. Before the Gemara goes further, it has a side issue. This is parentheses, a side issue over here. It said over here that this he asked the ger who he found over there on the islands. He found the ger that married a brother's wife. And he said, who permitted you? And he said, Rabbi Akiva. And it seems that Ben Yassain, this person who brings this information, he thinks that this is a good testimony that Rabbi Akiva permitted it. And he comes to the Besmedrash and says, I heard from a ger that said, in the name of Rabbi Akiva, that is permitted. And there was a problem with that. How you allowed to trust him? Could you trust somebody who says a testimony of a psak that had negias? How do you say negias in English? He had a bias, he had a personal reason why he might have wanted that psak, and you can't trust the psak that he got from a testimony that. Yeah, there's no difference between a guy. But me Muhammad is he trusted. Even Talmud Chacham, that he comes to tell you Allah, and he's telling you a testimony, not that he's passing. He's coming to say a testimony if somebody else has said something. It means it's special if he says a good svara. That has nothing to do with his testimony. If he says his svara to prove something, so then we all hear the svara, the other chachamim agree. So then, of course, even if it's negate to him, but the other chachamim agree. But if we're relying on his testimony, so if it happened before it had any any relevance to him, so then we trust him. But if he didn't tell us until it has relevance to him, ain't shamalo. You don't trust him. So how could you trust bringing the testimony of this ger that said Rabbi Akiva told me, since we know that he married such a case, he married his brother's wife, so just because he tells us Rabbi Akiva said so, we can't trust him. So the Gemara says 3 to us into this kasha. The case was he said it before it had relevance to him. He told it over the story later, but he had said over this testimony even before he married his brother's wife. He also said there's a story, besides his own story. There's a case of a woman with 7 children, and there was another story. He wasn't coming to say his own personal testimony. He said, go ahead, look over there. In this block over there, there's a woman with 7 children, and over there they Magayer, and they got the testimony from Rabbi Kiva. So it's not his own testimony. Go ask around. You'll find that it's other people say so also. And also, the fact that he said 2 things that Rabbi Kiva said, that also lends more credence to the testimony, because he didn't only say this halacha, he said other things that Rabbi Kiva also said, so that we trust him more. That was a side point. There was another side point about Yonah. Once we said in the name of Rabbi Kiva that Yonah only had 2 prophecies. Rabbi Kiva said, he's quoted as saying that the pasuk says Hashem spoke to Yonah a second time, only a second time. First and second time, no more time, no more. There's a pasuk in Malachim that says there was another testimony, another prophecy to Yonah. It says, "Hu heishiv es gvul Yisrael melavo chamas ad yom ha'arava kidva Hashem asher diber biyadav lo Yonah ben Amitai hanavi." It's a pasuk in Malachim that says, "Over there's a king, one of the kings of Yisrael, Yeravam ben Yoash, not Yeravam ben Nevat. There's a different king, Yeravam ben Yoash, that it says that he returned the boundary of Yisrael from the Chamas till Yom ha'arava, a certain territory that was taken from the Jews, and he was able to bring it back to the Jews, as Hashem had said through his servant Yonah ben Amitai the Navi." So it says there's another prophecy. So how come it says that he only had 2 prophecies? Here it says another prophecy. Rabbi Kiva just meant to say that no more prophecies about Nineveh. There were other prophecies, like it says over there, but he's going to bring back the land of the Eretz Yisrael will be returned to the Jews. But as far as Nineveh, he only had 2 prophecies, no more. Taisa has the kasha. If anybody has any kashas, Taisa has kashas here also. There were more prophecies about Nineveh, but that's our Gemara doesn't talk about it. The first white line. The word doesn't mean to say, the person doesn't mean that to say that Navi, that Yonah said such a prophecy that this land is going to be returned back to the Jews. He never said such a thing. It just means it just means to say the same way, not the prophecy that Yonah said, but the same as the prophecy, the same as Yonah's prophecy. I mean, just like Yonah's prophecy was, there's going to be a mapecha, there's going to be turnover, that Nineveh, first it was severe, then it's going to turn to good, and then the prophecy itself that he said it's going to be turned over. At the end, it came out that they did tshuva and it turned out for the good. So too, this also changed from bad to good. It doesn't mean to say that Yonah said a prophecy. It means to say that the same phenomena that happened in the times of Yonah also happened by the times of Yovam and Yoash, but not that it had not a prophecy. So that was a side point that Rabbi Kiva also said that Yonah didn't say more than 2 prophecies. So there might have a problem with that, and the Gemara has 2 answers. But back on track, back on the subject, 3 lines from the bottom is Ger allowed to marry his brother's wife. Tashma. Ger shahoya leidasa bigdusha v'araso shelo bigdusha. A ger that was born from his pregnant mother. It means in the case that his mother was pregnant when she converted, so he converted together with her. That's called that his conception was not in holiness, that he was conceived when his mother was a goy, and he was born when his mother was already a Jew. Yesh lo sher ha'ein ve'ein lo sher ha'av. He has relations to his mother, because when he was born, we said this before, that since he was born, it's true, he was Megayer in the womb. But now when he's born to his mother, a full-fledged son. Means if it would have been Megayer after he came out of the womb, then he's not really related to his mother. But since he was Megayer in the womb, so he's related to his mother, because by birth he was a ger in the womb, and now he's born. So he has relations to his mother. So all the relatives of his mother are considered, through his mother, are considered his relatives. But Ein Lo Sher Ha'av, he's not related to his father, because he deleted everything before. It means that the gear that happened in the womb, so everything before is deleted. Like we say, Gershon is Guy Kaddish and Oladami. So this fetus was Megaya in the womb, and that means that his father is deleted. Ketzad, how does that play out? Nasa Chosa Min Ha'em Yotzi. If he would take his sister from the common mother, so he has to divorce her because it's a real sister. He can't, and even if he did, he has to divorce her. He has to get rid of her. Not divorce. It's not really a marriage at all. It's his real sister. Yeah. It's a real Eva because it's a sister, full-fledged sister from his mother. But if he married his sister, that's only a sister from the common father, he can keep her because it's not a sister. Because he became a Jew after the conception. Another case, if he marries his father's sister, who's a sister to the father through a common mother. Now, really, this is a big chiddush because we would say the whole father's family is out. He's not related to his father. Here it says he's not allowed to marry his aunt, his father's sister. He's not allowed to marry his father's sister, even after the what?
Why? His
Why?
father is nothing. His
Right,
father-
very nice. So the question is why? The father's not related. So Rashi says because it has some kind of motherhood. It's Xavier. It's only Rabbanan. Because since it does talk about, you see, you say that his father's sister. How is it a father's sister? Through the mother. The father and the father, the mother of the father. The father and his sister. How are they brother and sister? Because they have a common mother. It's a generation up. We're not talking about this Ger's mother, this Ger's father, but the
His
fact
Ger's
that
father,
since there's some motherhood, and when you talk about this this relationship, you're going to talk about some kind of a motherhood. That already is confusing to people, and they're going to say motherhood. They want to know what motherhood does. So here, it's really the motherhood of the generation
this is
above.
rabbinic.
It's the father's. Yeah, it's rabbinic, right? It's only a
Because the
one.
mother is also a goy. The mother's a goy. The father, her son is a goy. His sister is a goy.
Right.
They're all goyim.
Right, and they're not related because
And
it's
they're
not
not related
related
because
because
that
he was a
was all
gear.
before
Because their son was this fetus was Megaya, so really it's not related to his father. But
Or his grandmother. Or his aunt, or his grandmother.
anything,
or his
anyone,
aunt.
the whole father side is really deleted.
Yeah.
But since when you talk about this relationship, you do talk about motherhood because you talk about the father's sister through the mother. So that already it brings for people the triggers the word mother, and they might make a mistake and think that motherhood.
There's no problem.
It doesn't make a relationship. We don't want to do that because we want to hold on that motherhood does make a difference because here she is a real mother. The mother of the fetus is a real mother because she gave birth to him. So that's a Rabbanan. Chiddush, you're right. You got it right that it should ask. Well, of course not. It's the father. But that's what Rashi says because Achosa min ha'im. Because Achosa min ha'im is also in this case his own sister. This Ger's own sister is really a sister because he was born after he was Megaya.
So even the father's sister.
So the father's sister, right? Since it's the same mother, but it's a chiddush. But if it will be next on Amud Beis min ha'av,
Sister from the father.
right? It was the father's sister, only from a common father. So then people don't say the word father. Then that doesn't mean anything. That's fine. Then he could keep her. Another case, achos ha'em ha'em yotzi, the mother's sister from a common mother. Also, but the right says okay because even though the mother was Megaya, but this was deleted before. It means the mother's mother, the mother's sister, all that's history. But the mother converted, so really it's not related. But since it has motherhood over there, again, it lights up. But Mino'av, how about if it's from the father? It means you have some motherhood here. It's a chosa'im. Mino'av means it's, and one way it's, you hear the word mother, because it means it's his mother's sister. But it's only mother's sister through a common father. What do you say about that? It's only a question of Rabbanan. Does the word mother trigger over here any bad connotations or not? So may only yotzi v'chama omi yikayim shayir of Meir omer kol ever she mishum sheraim yotzi mishum av yikayim. So here Meir says that also he should divorce because it has some kind of motherhood over here, even though it's a generation above and really it's not any more related. But if you have some kind of motherhood, even though it's on the mother's side, even though the relationship of the mother to her sister is through the father. But since you have some kind of on the mother, also it's
How
also.
far did you go?
I got till the blue.
You did?
Let's read it again. The case is achosa aim. Achosa
Yeah,
aim.
Mayor says that she has to go out, and the Chachamim say that if she's
Right. What's the case? Achosa aim min ha'av. Let's
Mhm.
let's put it on. I can't. Let's whatever the case is over here. This will be achos ha'aim min ha'av. If it's achos ha'aim min ha'aim, then show yotzi because it's too much motherhood over there. You hear the bell ringing. Aim. You don't want to say that it's mutter, so we want to know. Even though really it's not really a deraisa because his mother was Megaya, so she's not related to her sister anymore. But if it's a mother's sister from a common father, do we make this drabanan or not? The Chachamim say you could keep because it's already you hear some fatherhood.
Yeah.
It's too much. And Rameh says no. If you hear the word mother, so then also we want to make it drabanan that they shouldn't stay married. That's not negated to us. But here comes the words that we're looking for. Now let's erase this not to get.
That's what
No, it's still Shayir of Meir. That's still Shayir of Meir. Call ever Shim Mishum Shera Aim Yotzi Mishum Shera Avikaim. Rabbi used to say any kind of relationship that has to do with the relation of the mother Yotzi. If it's connected to the mother, Yotzi. If it's from the father, you can't. So that was all the side subject. Now the Brisa says this is what we're looking for now. It says in the Brisa, "Umoter be'eshes achiv." Me'imo if you want, but mutter be'eshes achiv. It says that the ger is mutter to marry his brother's wife. That's the subject. That's what we're talking about. That's what the whole subject is revolving around. Is a mutter for ger to marry his brother's wife? Here it says that's mutter.
Me'imo, we're not gonna put it
You can say me'imo. That's the case we're talking about. It's going to be me'imo. That means to say that it's mutter to marry his brother's wife. That's not much the subject. It says he's mutter. That was the subject of Rachab Yaakov and Avsheshis. Before we said maybe it's what did we say? We're going to say the same thing again also here. That maybe it means that it was a Eshes Achiv when he was a goy. That's what Moshe is going to do again. But so far it says that he's allowed to marry his brother's wife. That's what Rachab Yaakov. The Brisa continues. We're going to go pretty far until we get to the Katani Mias again. Let's see. Uve Eshes Achi Aviv. He's allowed to marry his uncle's wife, his father's brother's wife. It's all on the father's side. He's allowed to marry his father's brother's wife. Ushakal Arais Mutaros Lo, and other Arais also mutter. And the Gemara explains why that coming to include Lasui Eshes Av. He's also allowed to marry his father's wife. That's all deleted since he was Magayah, so they're not related to his father. Nasa Isho Bita. What if he had been married to a woman and a daughter? As a guy, this guy, before he got to a guy, he was married to a woman and a daughter. And now he became Jewish. What does he do now? So really, he's not related. They're all Magayah. He and his wives, and his two wives, his father, the mother and the daughter, they all Magayah. Some of the rights he can stay with them because they're not related. But he should only keep one of them. Keep one and send away one. But then it says, but the Chatchilo he shouldn't take. So that's not so clear. If it says a second ago that Kone Sachas and Motziachas, so that means Motziachas, so it means not the Chatchil, even the Eved has to send her away. The Gemara is going to work on that. One more case in the Brisa, Mesa Ishto Mutter Bachamoso, Diga Datani Esa Bachamoso. What the lacha is about how about marrying a woman and her mother, a mother-in-law. So here it says that if his wife died, it's a machlokas if he's allowed to take the mother-in-law. By a Jew, we had the sugya a couple of days ago that if a Jew, what's the lacha, he's not allowed to marry his mother-in-law, and even if the wife died, he's not allowed to marry the mother-in-law, only his sister-in-law. After a wife dies, it's mutter to marry the sister, but after the wife dies, also to marry the mother-in-law. The other machlokes if it's chayiv sreifa or it's only kares. After when the mother-in-law is alive, when the wife is alive, then the issur to marry the mother-in-law is going to be sreifa. But if the wife already died, the machlokes, which the Gemara is going to mention soon, machlokes if it goes down to kares or not. It's also asa, chayiv kares. Maybe it's even chayiv sreifa. That's a machlokes. But over here, machlokes is if the goy would be allowed to marry his mother-in-law after his wife died. The whole thing is rabbanan anyway, because in blue, it says Mutter Be'eshes Achiv. That's what it says. He's not to marry his brother's wife. That's the machlokes of Rachab Yaakov and Avsheshis. Once again, we found the raya. Katani Mias Mutter Be'eshes Achiv. Isn't that what we're looking for? My love the Nasba Achiv Kishu Ger isn't the case that the brother had married her after he was Magai already, and that's machlokes. Avsheshis says that it's Asa. Here it says that it's Mutter. The Gemara says once again the same terrace over and over again. No, that's not a proof. The Nasba Kishu Goy. The case was that he's allowed to take his brother's wife if the brother only had her when he was a goy. Then for sure, once he's Megayer, the wife's Megayer, then the brother's allowed to take her because there was no marriage over there. But again, my lamema is any chiddush in that. Ma'oratema looks at kishu goy or to kishu ger kamash. The same terrace over and over again. I think it's about maybe the fourth or fifth time we didn't count that the Gemara says the same terrace. Whenever you bring a right that it says he can marry his brother's wife, we say that's talking about a case where he was only the wife when he was a goy. So then the brother could take her because that's all nothing. But if the brother had married her after he was Jewish already, so then that's a machlokes if Sheish holds he can't take it. The Gemara does, and we finished already, and that's the end. As far as our search, we went on a cruise to find the search for this halacha. We didn't find it. There's no proof to find between Rav Yaakov and Avsheshis, and just to point out that the poskim passing like Avsheshis is not allowed to. That a ger is not allowed to marry the brothers, both two brothers in Magayer, and they married after the giur, after the conversion. So then, after one of them divorces or dies, the other brother is not allowed to take a sister-in-law. Like Rav Sheshes, it's not like Rav Yaakov. Again, of course, if it was a wife only in the goy history, then you are allowed to take. That's not called a sister-in-law. If only the brother, when he was a goy, was married to her. But if the brother married her after he was Megayer, that's the machlokes, and the Gemara doesn't have a proof at the end, but the post can do pas make of sheshes, that's asa. So the ger would not be allowed to marry his brother's wife. But before we go away, before we close up shop, the Gemara goes till the Mishnah to explain the brisa that had some loose ends that we didn't understand. So the Gemara goes back to the last brisa, Amama. That's the Isha Obita, and then it says the that's all what the brisa said. If the guy had married a woman and her daughter, and as a Jew you're not allowed to do that, but as a guy he did that, and now they're all Magaya. Can he stay married? So it says keep one and send away one. Keep one,
but don't do it.
but then it says the don't take it. That doesn't make sense. If it says Kol Nesachas means you could take one of them.
Yeah.
It's not going to say don't take any of them. It says you can take one of them. The other one send away. Then it doesn't make sense. Don't take. What do I mean? Don't take the second one. He has to even send her away. Not only shouldn't the evidence has to send her away. If he has to send her away, then it goes without saying he shouldn't take her. Even the evidence has to send her away. So the Brisa doesn't make sense. The Moyen says, Asam Koi, Vachi Kamar, Hanach. They change the word to Hanach. Hanach, Dam Rabban, and Yikayim, Lachatchilu Yichnos. It's going back in the rest of the Brisa. You're right. In this case, where it says that he has to send away that one of them, that doesn't mean Lachatchilu. It means even the evidence has to send away. But the Brisa had a couple of times that it said the word Yikayim. So whenever it says Yikayim, here the Gemara is saying that Lachatchilu he shouldn't. Only if he married her, I'll just highlight the places where it says Yikayim.
Yikayim means.
Whenever it says Yikayim in the Brisa, I'll read it again in the words, but here, let's go through the Brisa. It says over here, Mina'av Yikayim.
Yeah.
And then it says also on top of the page, Mina'av Yikayim. And then it says again, Yikayim. Whenever it says the Brisa Yikayim, not a Brisa is explaining that the Chatchil lo Yichnos. Whenever, it's not going back on the words that I just finished saying, Motzi Yachas. When it said Motzi Yachas, it doesn't say Chatchil lo Yichnos. That's even the evidence to send her away. But whenever the Brisa said Yikayim, means all these cases we said from the father, I didn't stress it before because the Gemara talks about it, that whenever it says that the relationship to the father was deleted, but it only means b'di'evet. If he married her, he can keep her. But even the relationships to the father, also we say, l'chadchila, he shouldn't take her. Only b'di'evet he can keep her.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's Jamar Rabbanan Yikayim L'chadchila Lo Yikanos.
Hanach to come Rabban Yikayim, right? Whatever the one said, he may keep l'chadchila lo yichnos.
That's what they mean.
That's what they mean to say, and that's what the Brisa says. The Brisa continued. How about a mother-in-law? This is also the.
I see. In other words, it means Yikayim means b'di'evet.
Right. If you marry, then we'll say, okay, you can keep her. But l'chadchila don't marry her. Even though it's only a relationship to the father. Right?
We thought it meant l'chadchila, but really meant
Right. And the truth is, the word Yikayim, that's what it means. Yikayim means keep her. It doesn't mean take her.
Go take her.
Right. So, but not. What? Right. Everything. That's the way to say it. The whole Akdama to the Sugi is everything's mutter the rice. The question is only Rabbanans. The Gemara, the Brisa continued. Meisa ishto mutter b'chamosa v'ikad datani asa b'chamosa. That was the machlokas at the end of the Brisa. Or two versions in the Brisa. If his wife died, is he allowed to take the mother-in-law? The guy, everything's with the Brisa mutter because they all gave him. But if he took a woman, he shouldn't marry her mother. But if the wife died, machlokas if he's allowed to take the mother-in-law. So the Gemara is going to say what we said Agav, that we had a couple of days ago, machlokes by a Jew. If he takes the mother-in-law after the wife died, is it as serious as taking the mother-in-law when the wife was alive? One holds it's just as serious, that it's chiv sreifa. But we pass like a bakiva, that it goes down a bit. It's not mutter, it goes down. It's only chorus and it's not sreifa. If you hold that it goes down, then the Gemara is going to say that it could be by a goy, we're not going to make that Rabbanan. The whole thing by the goy is Rabbanan, the gerim is Rabbanan. So it could be if you hold that the chiv of chamosa after the death of the wife is only chorus and not sreifa, so it could be we're going to permit it for good. That's what the Gemara explains. One Brisa that goes according to Bishmol that says that it's sreifa even after the wife died, and one's going like Rabbi Akiva that it goes down to chorus. Manda Osa, the one says that a ger is not allowed to marry his mother-in-law even after his wife dies. Is Rabbi Shmuel that he holds that Rabbi Shmuel holds that a mother-in-law even after the wife dies is the same Isser as when his wife was alive. That is sreifa. So therefore, there's no reason to be more lenient by the guy to marry his mother-in-law after the wife died. But how do I read it? I didn't read it in one line. Again, that the same Isser is after the wife dies as before the wife died. And therefore, if they said that the ger is not allowed to marry his mother-in-law, there's no difference before or after the wife dies. But Man the Shari, the one who says that the ger is allowed to marry his mother-in-law after the wife dies, why is that? Rabbi Kiva, Dama Chamoso Lachamisa Kalash Leisura. The Rabbi Gela goes a Barabanan. Rabbi Kiva says that after the wife dies, so the Isser of mother-in-law gets weakened a little bit. Kalash. It doesn't mean that it's mutter. It's still Asa, but it's weakened that it's only Karas and not Sreifa. So therefore, they didn't make the Gzera by Ger. And the Ger is allowed to marry his mother-in-law after his wife died. And that's how we paskin, because we pass like Rabbi Kiva, that the Isser of Chamoso goes down to Karas after the wife died. So by Ger, it's going to be mutter. If a Ger would mutter to marry his mother-in-law after his wife died. Okay. I didn't go further, so we have a 10-minute break. There you
You wanna
go.
read the Mishnah anyway?
I didn't prepare it yet. I didn't prepare it. There you go, everybody. Thank you. There you go.
My wife should be able to pass, so I'm lucky to be here.
I wish you'll have a wife.